Hey guys, we are back. The Walker household is quiet enough for us to record part two of
Hopefully, for now,
hopefully.
at least.
That's married life for you, okay? We are in our home and we are about to bring you part two of our relationship series. And this part is specifically for our married folks, okay? So if you are married and if you aspire to be married, this is for you. And David and I are coming up on our fourth wedding anniversary.
That's
Woo,
right.
woo.
We've been knowing each other or dating for 9 years.
Yeah, so we've been
it's
in
been a
this
minute. It's been a
together
minute.
for a while,
Some
so
time.
we know a thing or two, you know.
You learn some tips and tricks along the way.
Yeah, and so we just want to share that with our friends and our family, and those of you who are walking through that journey.
Right.
And
So we're good to go.
yeah, we're in a really good place, and we just kind of feel like it's an opportunity for us to use that wisdom to illuminate or enlighten other people that might be in the very newlywed season, or regardless, whatever season you are in marriage. We hope that this finds you in a place where you can find some wisdom and some help. So without further ado, baby, tell them what point number one is.
So the first point we want to discuss tonight is really the biggest lesson for us. The takeaway, if you will, for marriage. And I think for me, it's humility. I think one of the most humbling things you will ever do in your life is get married. It requires
Facts.
an enormous amount of humility and a continuous amount. Every day, you need to make sure you're walking in humility with your spouse, and it's just really the nature of putting your own wishes and desires sometimes, and even ideas, second place. Really putting your spouse before yourself. Really realizing and being vulnerable enough to understand. Listen, I don't have all the answers. I don't have it all together, but here God has brought this spouse into your life to help you, to assist you, and you guys have to work together and have to figure out what that looks like. And so, in order to, for a man to really, walk in unity with his wife, there is a healthy amount of humility that must exist if you're going to do it well. There are people that are in pride and they're married, and I wonder, ask your spouse, how is that? How is it to be married to somebody that's always walking around in pride? I'm sure that's not a good experience. But if you're trying to cultivate a loving marriage, a place of enjoyment, a place where you both can thrive, where you both can grow together, it's going to take humility. Mm-hmm. And for me, that has been the big theme for our marriage. And just me, maybe not for her, but for me. That's a concept that I had to grasp early on. And man, I really gotta be humble. I really gotta make sure that I am living that out on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. So for me, I think the biggest lesson that I've learned is that in marriage, you are in covenant with your purpose partner. Like, we are partners in purpose. And what that looks like is learning our strengths and our weaknesses, learning how to work together in purpose. Because honestly, we're here to the end, right? And so we've got to figure out, how do we ebb and flow together? How do we get through these different seasons? How do we get through all of the things, as husband and wife, in purpose with one another? And that's a process. That's the biggest thing that I think I've learned. And discovering each other's strengths and weaknesses, and where we can be complementary to one another has been a learning curve for me. I know for me, before I was married, I definitely thought that, I was, A1. I didn't need any help. I could do bad all by myself, right? And marriage is, we always hear it. Marriage is like that mirror. It shows you, it shows you to the core. And I definitely saw some things in myself in the beginning of marriage when, I would, the way that I would respond to conflict, or the way that I would respond to adversity or tension, or confrontation, those things were, things inside that I never really had to confront or face until I got married. And learning how to overcome that, or learning how to manage and deal with that in respect to having somebody else that I'm in this with, forced me to recognize, like it's not all about me anymore. It's not all about my response anymore. My response affects this entire family and my purpose partner. So discovering how we can work together through this is something that I'm still learning how to do today, but
Right.
it's
Right.
definitely been something that I think has been one of the biggest lessons for sure.
So in your marriage, it's not about if you're gonna hit turbulence; it's when you hit turbulence. All right, and so rough patches was something that we had to get accustomed to. Bumping heads. How do you handle disagreement? There will be disagreements. I don't know these people that don't have disagreements. Um, if you don't have a fight with your spouse and you're married, God bless you. I don't know what else to say. That's just not our reality. When we fought early on, I was like, what the world did I get myself into? I don't need to be married. What did I do? I made a mistake. I was definitely thinking along those lines and ready to pull the plug.
In his feelings.
In my feelings, just realizing that this is maybe not what I wanted. This is not living up to the expectation that I had. And that's when I had an epiphany, because a lot of times when people are going through those rough patches or they're going through those growing pains, or two are trying to come together and become one, and that is a challenge, you ask yourself, why are you upset? Well, you're upset because the experience that you're having does not live up to the epiphany that you had about marriage. People have this epiphany, or something. Maybe I did. I'll talk about myself. That it was going to be a walk in the park every day. Bree was going to be singing my praises. Every night it was going to be, laying it down. You just have these ideas about marriage, and a lot of times they're epiphanies. Every successful marriage is built from the ground up.
Yeah.
Nothing just exists. And I had to really check myself and realize, listen, these, love stories, Love Jones and Pretty Woman, bro, that's a fantasy. All right. You have these ideas about marriage that is created by cinema or created by Hollywood, that is totally a fantasy. It couldn't be further from the truth. Any successful marriage, anybody that has a successful marriage will tell you it took work. You had to put in the time. You had to put in the effort. You had to work through the disagreements. And so when I realized that, okay, I can expect to have the perfect marriage or the marriage that I'm envisioning that I want if I have not rolled up my sleeves and put in the work to have that outcome. And so it's like anything else in life. You got to work at it in order to have the prize. All right. There are no overnight successes. And so that's my approach. That's been our approach, I would say. Once we had that epiphany, it was rough at first. We were fighting a lot and had disagreements. And then we had to realize everything is not what's fighting over.
Right. You got to pick your battles.
All right.
Yeah.
Everything you think you need to say or verbalize is not worth verbalizing.
If David chews and smacks every time he eats, maybe every time we have a meal isn't the opportunity to bring that up.
It's not worth fighting over, okay? Just let it ride, all right, homie? Just let it ride. And so really realizing, and that's when I was praying, the Lord was dealing with me about, this is before we got married, about, I don't know if we mentioned this in the previous video, about the garden. Your marriage is like a garden.
I like to tell that story.
Whatever you plant is what you will have. So if you're not reaping, what you want to see in your marriage, if you're not living the experience that you have in your mind, this is the vision that I want my marriage to be, then you need to check, okay, what seeds are you planting? All right? Because whatever you're harvesting is a result of what you have planted in that marriage.
That's good,
all
bro.
right? And so you got to be cognizant of that. What am I planting? If I want this idealistic marriage, where we're, madly in love with each other every day, falling in love with each other, walking in humility, having a sense of joy. What seeds are you planting to have that reality? How are you going about designing that outcome? It's all on you. The kind of marriage you have is all an indicator of what you put in, what kind of work you put into it. Yeah. Okay? No perfect marriages exist. And I think that's just a fallacy for all of us that are, caught up in movies, and we think, oh, the happy ending, the happy ever after, I want that. You got to work for that. Right. Nobody's offering that for free. Right. I don't care how bad she is, I don't care how beautiful she is, I don't care how fine he is. Listen, when you get two people together, there are going to be some sparks. There are going to be some things you got to work through.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I would say for me, in that the idea that, you know, our mentors or people would just say those same things that you were saying, in that it takes work in marriage. But what a fail for me was, I didn't hear enough people talking about what those, you know, tips and tricks or tools were to handle those disagreements or those aggressive, you know, moments of fellowship, as our senior pastors like to call it.
Those moments where you're like, I'm gonna call the police if you don't chill out.
Where is the Divorce Attorney Act? Okay, you know,
right.
and we joking, but we're not. But I didn't hear enough people talking about that, and that frustrated me. And it almost caused me to think, like, wow, like, we're the only ones going through this. We are the only ones that have these problems.
Right.
You know, we're the ones that's like, something's wrong with us, you know?
Yeah.
And then when you get into that place of you think it's just you tend to isolate yourself, and you don't want to reach out, and you don't want to go and seek help, because you're going to think that other people are going to look at you like you're crazy. And the reality is, no, we have all married people have gone through these situations.
Right.
And it's just a matter of knowing who has been in your life long enough that you trust with your situation, with, you know, what's going on in your marriage in that moment, and who's, you know, seen your life long enough, who's seen the journey of your relationship long enough, and who you trust to speak into your life at that moment. Because not everybody needs to hear your dirty laundry. Not everybody gets the rights, you know, to what's going on in your marriage. And I would even say social media does not even need to know what's going on in your marriage. Those are just some side notes I want to put out there. But knowing who those mentors are, who those elders are in your life that you can go to and glean that wisdom from in that moment. Because honestly, you know, there are a lot of things that we kept within the confines of our home. And
Absolutely.
we advise most people to do that, because again, everybody doesn't
Your
need to know.
business is your business.
Right. But there are some times where there are issues, hard-hitting issues, that you guys are going to bump heads on.
Right.
And you need an outside, unbiased party to speak, you know, counsel into that situation. And so there were times where I did that. And in those times, you know, we were able to really see, like, how our mentors handled disagreements or handled, you know, big issues, big fights, you know. And so that's really where this part 2 sparked from, because I want to be, you know, somebody, or I want us to be people of God who are like, listen, it ain't all roses and sunshines and peonies. There will be times where you have to, like, you gotta do what you gotta do to make it through.
And it can be, I think you can have a successful marriage that you enjoy, and that's, something to be admired. But it's going to take work.
Right.
You got to put in the work. It doesn't happen automatically.
I always tell people marriage is beautiful work.
Yeah.
Because
it is
what
beautiful work.
what
It
you
is.
begin to see in perspective, like what you're building, it is so beautiful and it is so powerful. But it is work.
It is work.
You are building an enterprise, okay?
Yeah.
You are building something that your children are going to thank you for, their children are going to thank you for, that the community and the culture is going to thank you for, or all of these different people or entities are being affected by what you are building.
Right.
But it is going to take work.
Right.
Another point of, you know, getting through those rough patches is knowing that you've got 2 different personalities coming to the table, and working through and revealing, you know, what it is, who it is that you are and who it is that I am to one another, is a process. And sometimes it's glorious, and sometimes it is, like we said, work. And so I think a big mantra of our family, since we have been married since day one, since the wedding, was yielding to leadership. David coined that. And
my groomsmen coined that. They all know about that trip where that idea was birthed.
That was birthed in Vegas, right?
It was birthed in Vegas. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah.
But it's something that I think is definitely transferable. Yeah. And it's a key point. And just yield to leadership. And when we say yield to leadership, we're not saying that one person dominates the other.
Yeah.
But in our house, the leadership is wisdom. And so we're yielding to wisdom. All right? We're getting situations where, you know, we're at odds. Well, what does wisdom say?
Yeah.
Okay, what is the wise approach? I love how the Bible repeatedly talks about wisdom. Proverbs talks about wisdom. It's just something. It's something that you can build your whole life on. And so, in our marriage, we're trying to be wise in how we navigate situations, how we navigate problems, how we navigate, opportunities. And so, I think that for me, you got to let go of perfectionism. Okay, your spouse is not perfect, but neither are you. All right, and so I think that when you let go of that, and that's a wise approach, reminding yourself, there are no perfect people here. You're gonna have to be extending grace, and guess what? You're gonna need grace as well. And so, really utilizing that line of thinking really can help you when you're trying to mesh personalities, or when you're trying to understand what in the world, what is she thinking? Why would she do that? What is wrong with her? Did she take her meds today? All of that. Because there will be opportunities for that.
That is a very sensitive topic.
You need to realize that there are no perfect spouses. And guess what? Brother, you're not perfect. So extend grace. And so that really will help you take a step back and understand, what she brings to the table and everything about her. This goes back to Bree's point, letting your spouse be them, their authentic self. Everything that they're bringing to the table, you can benefit from. Okay, and so you don't want to dismiss any part of it. All right, you want to, even if there are shortcomings, you want to be that spouse that can help your spouse grow. That's the other thing. You want to be with somebody that you can grow with. And if you're not vulnerable enough to say, listen, there's some areas I got on lock, I'm A1, I'm good. There are other areas I need growth in, okay? That's going to take a mature spouse to say, I'm going to give you the space to grow, all right? I'm not going to be breathing down your neck. I'm not going to be, asking a million questions. Why you not mature in this area? Why you don't have this? Why you don't have that? Yeah. No, I'm going to be a mature spouse and cover you and say, listen, let's grow together, all right? But that comes, understanding that we're working together. Two are becoming one. All right, those personalities, you got to really find that balance so that you can operate as one.
So good, baby. I just think a big part of meshing personalities is knowing that, yes, you are going to yield to that leadership. Yes, you are going to submit to what the Holy Spirit says in that situation. But I don't think it's ever a license to compromise who you are to the core, meaning your authentic self. Like, I know what I want. I'm opinionated. I can be a little bossy. And I, for the most part, if you ask me, I have a plan of my own, right? But when we came together, as husband and wife, I think a big part of David allowing me to be myself was knowing that just because I am submitted to his leadership doesn't mean that he gets to walk over me, like a doormat,
right,
or that I have my personality or who I am at the core has to be compromised.
Right.
No, he still lets me be a tad bit bossy, right. Not to a point where it's disrespectful, but he knows, like, oh, Bree has an opinion, so let her share her truth, right? As long as it's not being disrespectful or it's not stepping out of the boundaries of leadership, then we're good, right? We've got to give each other, like David said, that grace to grow and grow in our personality, but grow in, covenant with one another as we are working out, our differences and, in our similarities. So knowing how to, navigate that, it comes with time.
Yeah.
And it comes, it comes with wisdom. And so make that your prayer.
Yeah.
Lord, give me the wisdom and the know-how to love my spouse the way you desire to love, me to love my spouse. And so that's important.
And you ain't going to love your spouse every day. I mean, you're going to love your spouse every day. You may not like your spouse every day. All right. And that's where it comes with maturity to say, listen, this person just did something I really do not like. I'm going to take the high road and understand that, hey, this is them. Yeah. All right. This is who they are.
Yeah.
As long as, like Bree said, they're not stepping over any boundaries. No, there's no perfect spouse.
Right.
All right. Let go of that perfectionism. I think so many people have this idea of perfectionism for their spouse, and they're holding up to the standard. They're holding their spouse up to a standard that the spouse will never arise to. That's not fair. Okay, you're putting that pressure on your spouse to come up to this level of perfectionism. None of us are perfect. All of us are striving and becoming and evolving. And so really, when you look at it through that lens, you probably can just chill. Your spouse say something, your spouse do something, you can probably just chill and let it roll off your back, understanding that, hey,
This is how I fight my battles.
Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect.
Pick your battles.
For sure.
Yeah, and just going to that idea of fantasy, like, listen, if you had the, like, perfect, like, if you found your soulmate, okay, and they were the perfect person for you, right? Even in that situation, that person is going to have character flaws that you're going to have to work through.
Right.
So do not discount, your spouse because he or she doesn't have this, that, or the third. Like, you have to grow in covenant with them.
And you're growing together.
Yeah.
You're growing together. But like Bree said, there is no perfect spouse.
Right.
Sometimes you think, man, I married the wrong woman. Like, this is crazy. What was I thinking? There's nobody perfect.
Yeah.
God's giving you a purpose partner. A part of that is growing together, and you grow in compatibility. You really grow to be more compatible over time.
Yeah.
I think that this idea that this person is your soulmate, soulmates are created. There's nobody that you meet and they're automatically your soulmate. At least this is what I think.
No, but I
according to my
ascribe to
experience.
that too.
Soulmates are created over time because we're growing together and we're growing more compatible.
Right.
We're putting in the work.
We're putting in the
effort.
work to do that. So many people don't put in the work.
Yeah.
Therefore, they grow apart.
Right.
But when we're putting and investing and putting in the work to grow together,
you gotta be intentional.
Yeah.
For sure.
Then you definitely reap the benefits of that.
That's what's helped us. A few conflict resolutions, because I think that you just see so many people handling conflict, in the wrong manner, and that can destroy your family.
Yeah.
The enemy will love nothing more than to separate the family, the nucleus. And so really understanding how do you handle conflict can really make or break your marriage, in my opinion. And so one of the things that we subscribe to is put in a parking lot. We come to an issue where we can't seem to have agreement on, we can't seem to come to an understanding. We put that in a parking lot, park it. We'll come back to it a little later. Let's continue going and function as a family. Sometimes people will just get stuck at that one issue, not budging and being stubborn on the issue. And you're not making any progress. Know how to remove the issue out of the way and keep moving forward. And then when you're in a healthier place, maybe you calm down, maybe you're not as emotional about it, you can bring that issue up and really work through it. That's a wise approach.
Can I say this? I think our personalities or the way that we process information also comes into play, and this might help somebody. David processes like by talking it out, like instantaneous communication. He can do that, and he'll have valid points to support his thought process.
I was going to law school before I went to, after undergrad, before God had other plans for me. But,
well, we in the Walker household now. So, whereas myself, I need to internalize things. I need to process it on the inside. I need to think about it. I need to figure out, like, how do I really feel about this? And why is it making me feel like that? Oh, okay. And then then I can really flesh out my points and hit it hard, right? But it takes me a minute, right? Yeah. So if you put it in the parking lot, it gives both people an opportunity to go to their separate corners, process it separately, individually, ask the Holy Spirit, work on me. So that way when we come back together, we're in a place where we can hear and receive from one another, which is the next point, talking and listening. There's always a time to talk, right? And then there's always a time to listen. So both partners have to model that. So if we're discussing a situation, I have to share with David, this is my time to talk, and you don't get to talk right now. Okay, and he agrees, and he lets me talk, and then I finish, and then it's his time to talk.
Vice versa.
I don't get to interrupt when he's talking because that's unfair.
That's hard in the heat of the moment. That's really hard.
It's not hard for me.
Because you're ready to let me tell you, let me lay it out for you how you is out of line right now. And
but what I think you've learned is that you have to, in that moment of listening, right?
Yeah.
You can't be listening to respond.
You can't be. That's not fair.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
You have to truly listen to what your spouse is saying.
Yeah.
So that way you
Yeah.
can respond, from your heart.
And it goes back to understanding the big picture. Listen, this is our lives. What kind of life are you creating for your partner? You want to create a prison for your partner can't express themselves, your partner, not allowed to, talk or be themselves. You are creating the environment for your spouse. What kind of environment do you want to create? Don't, give your partner grace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, guys, the biggest thing here in conflict resolution is forgiving quickly.
Yeah.
David is awesome at this.
Yeah, I taught Bree that. Bree didn't know how to do that in the beginning, but I think she caught on fairly quickly. And it's that, we're purpose partners. So I can afford to, be at odds with my partner. I need my partner.
Yeah.
So I don't care what's happening. We're going to deal with it and we're going to get over it quickly and get back to enjoying our lives.
There's such a freedom in that, friends.
It is.
Such a freedom.
It is. On both ends.
Yeah.
Yeah, on both ends.
Yeah. You just get to go on and continue loving your spouse and
just
realize
put
like
behind
that was
you.
so stupid.
It's a waste. Harboring that resentment,
energy?
being upset, it's a waste. And you can have every right, to be upset.
Yeah.
You have every right to
Yeah.
be like,
Yeah.
let me tell you about yourself.
Yeah.
But after you do it, move on.
Yeah.
Don't harbor that in your heart. And that's done so much to make our marriage where we enjoy one another and keep the love flowing.
Yeah.
And it's so important to be in a good place with your spouse. I think you want to be in a good place. Every day you wake up, you want to be happy to see your spouse. You don't want, yesterday interfering with today. This is a fresh day. This is a new day.
Yeah.
Let's enjoy what today has to bring for us.
He makes me so emotional. So if you see me welling
Oh,
up,
baby.
I'm so sorry. Like
Oh,
I'm
baby.
like thinking
Oh,
about
baby.
I don't know, like you just think about all the different things that we've gone through. Like,
Oh, baby.
we're purpose partners. Yeah.
right.
So
And together,
last
baby. And together.
last but not least, we have communication.
Yeah.
Communication is, we think, one of the most important cornerstones of our marriage.
It
and
is.
It sounds super cliche, but it's so true.
It's so
y'all.
true. And
It's
I
so
think we
true.
really have recently come to a place where I think we're kind of being able to, I don't want to say master it, but we're really
Yeah.
good at communicating.
Yeah.
We're a lot better than what we have been in the
For
past.
sure.
And we
Because
see the
he's
fruit.
listening to me now.
Ah, you so funny. Yeah. I think we just both are able to understand, hey, I need to communicate clearly. Okay. And maybe it's not anybody's fault. It's just the communication is not as clear as it should have been.
Right.
Really valuing that.
Right.
We've
got a book. It's called Love and Respect, and this is the workbook itself. The actual book looks a lot like this cover.
Yeah. Somebody
but
gave that to us.
yeah.
A great gift.
It was one of the best gifts, hands down,
Yeah.
that we got as or for our marriage
Yeah.
or for our wedding. But a big part of communication in what this book talks about is that when you are communicating as husband and wife, you have to recognize that the Bible says that wives, we are to respect our husbands, and husbands, you are to love your wife.
That's right.
And in that communication, when it's going both ways, you have to make sure that you are lacing
Right.
the communication with what your spouse needs.
That's right.
So when I am communicating to David, even though I love and desire and need love,
Right.
he needs respect.
You better know it.
And so
Come on.
how I communicate or share my point of view, best believe
Yeah.
needs to have respect all up in it.
That's
Okay.
right.
I
That's right.
cannot,
That's right.
hit on his ego. I cannot tear him down. He is a man.
Right.
He, at the core, he needs respect. And the Bible is so just articulate, simple, but profound in sharing that wisdom with us. And the same is true the other way around.
Yeah.
I need love.
Yeah. What I'm saying, and if I'm communicating with Bree, I need to lace in the love. I need to make sure I'm speaking from a place of love. Otherwise, she's not gonna want to hear it. She gonna turn a deaf ear to it. If I want to be effective in my communication with my wife, I know I need to definitely come from a place of love, and I need to make sure she feels that. And so that's been paramount for us, understanding how to love each other in our language, and that parlays into another one of our favorite books. It's called The 5 Love Languages by Dr. Gary Chapman, and it really helps you understand that we are wired differently. Okay, and sometimes you might be loving your spouse, but if you're not loving your spouse in their language, your spouse is not hearing you. They're not, understanding what you're saying. And so for us, that was a big breakthrough. And I think we're still trying to make it a continuous effort to love our spouse in their love language. But that really helps,
Yeah.
And then we're all about getting as many tools and really receiving as much wisdom as we can to make our marriage the best that it can be.
Yeah.
And so the 5 love languages has been huge for us, and I would recommend that to any couple that's dating or engaged or even married. If you want to take your marriage to the next level, check out that book.
Absolutely.
Check out both of the books.
Yeah.
It's been a blessing.
So I'll go over the 5 love languages.
Sure.
We have words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, physical touch, and receiving gifts. And of course, if you want to dive more into it, definitely recommend you guys reading the book and reading it together as a couple.
Yeah, that was fun.
But definitely knowing that we're different. We're wired differently.
Yes.
Each and every individual is wired differently. And even within those top 5 languages, there are different dialects. And the book talks about that. So if your words of affirmation, that's the umbrella, but maybe you specifically like to hear those words of affirmation. Like you like to hear compliments. Whereas like for me, I like to see, specific things affirmed in writing. So I love for David to post, Post-it notes around the house randomly that say, oh, you look good today, babe, or oh, you're the best wife ever, babe, hint, hint. But just kind of knowing that that's another applicable tool that you can use in your marriage to, like David said, take it to the next level. And here's the thing. Our marriage goes through different seasons, okay? And so you want to learn how to endure throughout every season there is, right? And there are going to be seasons that are rough, that are hard, that are tough. But you've got to understand that that season is not there to last.
Right.
And God has equipped you and empowered you to make it through it to the other side, to use that as a testimony or a point of witness for somebody else that needs it.
Right.
And so we think that the 5 love languages is definitely a tool that helps you, because even in the midst of like this season right now, we have she's not a newborn, she's almost 1 year old, but feels like she's still a newborn because we are hardly getting sleep, right? It's a tough season, right? Some things have been on the low. And if we are good at knowing our love languages, outside of maybe sex all the time, David can definitely fill my love tank in a way that, doesn't take a lot of effort.
Right.
And I can totally, fill his love tank in a way that, doesn't take, a lot, that we can still manage even in this dry season.
And something from the book that we were doing and that we still do is that checking in with your spouse. How is your love tank?
Yeah.
The book will talk about your love tank and if it's full or half or empty, and that will really help your spouse figure out what they need to do to help you, all right, or to show love to you.
Right.
I think a lot of times people think that your spouse is automatically going to know. Well, your spouse is not going to automatically know. They got
It's
their own
such
life.
a scary question to ask, but once you get in the habit of asking
it's a good question.
It's a great question, because it's
yeah.
a conversation starter.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity to be honest and vulnerable and transparent.
It's a progress report. Like how are we doing right now? And you want to check in, because I think people who don't check in and people who are not realistic, that's how they end up in divorce.
Right.
Oh, I thought you were enjoying it. Well,
Right.
I was hating it.
Yeah.
Well, if somebody was checking in and asking
Right.
about, you would have known they've been on empty, for the last 3 or 4 or 5 months. So you really got to, be conscious of that and really understand that, man, this is what I need to do, putting in the work to make that fantasy, to make that marriage that you want it to be.
Make that marriage great again. Sorry, I had to take it. We had friends that had a wedding,
Very
that got
clever.
married,
We loved
had
it.
red caps,
Make
and it
marriage.
said, make a marriage great again.
I love
Shout out
that.
to y'all. You know who you are.
Congratulations to you guys
Yeah.
as well. But no, so we just pray that our just a few tips and tricks has helped somebody, has blessed someone. Our desire is just to connect with people and to share our testimony, and hopefully that will inspire or motivate or encourage another couple. Bree, thank you for having me on your blog.
Oh, over.
Appreciate it. It's
Oh,
been fun.
babe.
And hopefully you'll have me back one day. Who
Yay!
knows?
Do you guys want to see him back?
Who knows?
Let me know in the comments if you want to see him back, y'all. I'm so blessed and so honored that he, agreed to do this. He is like just, all about, his work and what he does on a daily basis. And
Busy.
of course, yeah.
It's not about, I'm busy, y'all.
He's making
I'm busy.
moves, okay?
I'm
He's
doing
making
things.
moves. Yeah.
Money moves.
But I'm so, honored that, he was gracious enough to come and spend the hours
No, it's been good.
and, of time that it did take
It's been
to
fun.
put these things together. So
Yeah.
excited that you guys get to see us in action together. And like you said, maybe there will be more. All right. Love you guys. Please let me know what you thought about the series. And until next time, y'all have a blessed 2019. Bye-bye.